Okay, Rabbi Sai, we are on DAF Yomi Aleph. We're at the fifth line, Bo'u leno v'givon v'chulei. The Mishnah had told us the historical progression from the time that we came into Eretz Yisrael until the time of the building of the Beis HaMikdash, that 440-year period. At different stages, bamos were permitted. Two different stages, bamos were permitted. During the first 14 years when we came into Eretz Yisrael, before we had put the Mishkan in Shiloh, and after the Mishkan Shiloh was destroyed after 369 years, there was a 57-year period where we had a temporary Mizbeach in the areas of Nov and Givon. It migrated, but that's where it was essentially, in that area, for 57 years until Shlomo built the Beis HaMikdash. Now, it's important to note that during this period, the Aron was not in the same vicinity as Nov and Givon. It was in a town called Kiryat Ye'arim. I'm not sure exactly the distance, but they're not exactly adjacent to each other. So, Bo'u leno v'givon v'chulei, once the Jews came to Nov and Givon, meaning that the Mishkan was destroyed in Shiloh, bamos were once again permitted, both a public bama that was in Nov and Givon and private bamos also throughout Eretz Yisrael. Now, minohani mili, how do we know this? The Tanu Rabbanan kilo vasem ad ata el hamenucha ve'el hanachala. So this is an important pasuk. It's in this week's parsha, Parshas Re'eh, that you have not yet come at this point to the menucha and to the nachala. El hamenucha zu Shiloh, nachala zu Yerushalayim. So those two words, menucha and nachala, menucha refers to Shiloh, and nachala refers to Jerusalem, to the settlement, or to the resting place, and to the inheritance. So resting place refers to Shiloh, and inheritance refers to the final inheritance of Hashem's Shechina, which is in Yerushalayim. Now, what do we see from this? That bamos, was what Hashem, the context of the pasuk is that Hashem is essentially telling the Jewish people, it's okay for you to do whatever you like as far as sacrificial service, because you haven't yet come to these two places. Now, lama chilkan k'dei litein heter bein zeh lazeh. Now, why did the Torah have to provide the names of both of these places? The Torah should have simply said, if bamos were permanently prohibited after the erection of Mishkan Shiloh, the Torah could have just said, kilo vasem ad ata el hamenucha, and period. And then, once you've come to Shiloh, no more bamos. So the fact that the Torah enumerates both is to tell me that there will be a time period between menucha and nachala when temporarily bamos will once again be permitted, and that's in Nov and Givon. Amar le Reish Lakish le Rabbi Yochanan, Meiser Sheni nami listening. So Reish Lakish asks Rabbi Yochanan a very simple question. He says, if the Jewish people came to Nov and Givon, and that was the place where they had the Bama Gedola, they had the large altar, would not one also expect that that is the place where when they bring their Meiser Sheni to somewhere, they should bring their Meiser Sheni to the vicinity of that Mizbeach? So Amar le Meiser Sham me Aron Kol Yalfi, Kaven da Aron lo hava, Meiser nami lo havoy. So Rabbi Yochanan responded and he said, no, the bringing of Meiser Sheni to a holy place is not dependent upon where the major altar is, but rather where the Aron is. And if the Aron is not in the same place as the major altar, there is no longer an obligation to bring your Meiser Sheni to that holy place. Okay, and we learn that out from a Gezerah Shava, because the words Sham, va'achaltem Sham, which is the law of you shall eat your Meiser Sheni, is also connected to the word Sham in the context of the Aron Kodesh, where the Torah says, V'samta Sham eis Aron ha'idus. You shall place in the Mishkan the holy Aron. Okay, now, Ihachi Pesach v'kadshim nami, d'sham sham me Aron yalfi. So the Gemara now says, well, if that's the case, then should we not argue that all kadshim, all sacrifices that are communal in nature, are dependent upon the presence of the Aron? Why does if you're making such a Gezerah Shava, it also says, Va'achaltem sham lifnei Hashem Elokeichem, you shall eat in that place in front of Hashem your God, all of your holy things. and we should make that word sham sham, that gzeira shav of sham sham, we should connect it to the aron. So is there even a need for a bama gedola at all in the absence of an aron? So the Gemara answers, Dekeven da'aron lohavi inunami lohavu. So why don't we argue that all of these communal sacrifices should not have been extant at all? So Amar lei da'amar lach ha'amani Reb Shimon hi da'amar af tzibur lo hikrivu ela pesach v'chavos hakavu lahem zman aval chavos she'en kavu lahem zman hacha v'hacha lo karev. So the answer that Reb Yochanan gives back to Reish Lakish is, you're taka right. We learned a shita of a Tana the last couple of days, which is Reb Shimon. And Reb Shimon had said that the only types of communal sacrifices that were brought on the Bama Gedola, both in Gilgal and in Noven Givon, were time-bound karbanos that had to be brought in specific times. But karbanos, even communal karbanos that were not bound in time, were not brought on a Bama Gedola in Noven Givon. And the reason for that is because there was no aron. In other words, I agree with you. So therefore, there is that exclusion of certain communal karbanos because there's an absence of the aron. So the Gemara now says, Meiser behema chavo shen kavu lahem zmanhu, and by that token, a carbon of Meiser behema, where an individual brings his every 10th animal that is born in his flock or in his herd, he brings as a carbon to the Beis HaMikdash, he says, is not something that is time-bounded, and therefore is not brought on the Bama Gedola. Ve'iska shmeiser dagan l'meiser behema. And that's the reason why Meiser Sheni is also connected. In other words, we are basically in agreement. Just like you don't bring Meiser Behema on a Bama Gedola, according to Reb Shimon, you also don't bring Meiser Sheni, according to Reb Shimon. And so therefore, you don't even need to rely on the sham sham. In other words, even if you don't hold of the sham sham, and there is still the necessity for certain karbanos to be brought on the Bama Gedola, nonetheless, we still submit that according to Reb Shimon, there is a limitation to what karbanos you bring, and that limitation of karbanos also excludes the bringing of Meiser Sheni to the Bama Gedola. Michlal de Rebbe Yehuda Karev. So does that imply that according to Rebbe Yehuda, you do bring Meiser Behema to the Bama Gedola? In the Ha'amar of Ada Bar Masna, Meiser Sheni u Meiser Behema ne'echolen beno v'givan l'divrei Rebbe Yehuda. Yes, because this was stated explicitly by Rav Ada, that according to Rebbe Yehuda, who says that there was a large variety of karbanos, even individual obligatory karbanos were brought on the Bama Gedola, including Meiser Behema. By that token, Meiser Sheni was also required to be brought to Noven Givon in order to eat Meiser Sheni there. So this is a fundamental machlokas. But at least according to our Mishnah, the reason why it omits Meiser Sheni is because it's going like Rebbe Shimon. V'haboi bira. So the Gemara now says, but one second, don't you need something called a bira, which we explained before is sort of like a central location where Hashem brings his Shekhinah down on some level in order for there to be a requirement of Meiser Sheni to be brought to that place. So the Gemara says, V'lav Tani Rav Yosef Shalosh Birosein Shilo V'no V'givanu Beis Olamim. But that's why Rav Yosef had taught in a Braisa that there were three divine capitals, so to speak. There was Shiloh, Noven Givon, and Yerushalayim. So, and the Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. So therefore, it does fit that criterion. And therefore, according to Rebbe Yehuda, you would bring Meiser Sheni there. And Hu Tani La V'hu Amar La, and the same Rav Yosef quoted that Braisa, and he said, La Achilas Meiser Sheni V'aliba de Rebbe Yehuda, that it pertains to the law of Meiser Sheni. In other words, the reason why we need to identify three divine capitals is for the purpose of knowing that when those places are places of primary sacrificial order, you have to not only bring karbanos there, but you also bring Meiser Sheni to those places according to Rebbe Yehuda. That's the conclusion of that discussion. So ultimately there's a machlokes as to whether you have to bring Meiser Sheni to know V'givon or not, when that was the central location for the bringing of karbanos. Next, Bo'oli Yerushalayim v'chulei. The Mishnah had then said that after those 57 years in Nov and Givon, the temple was built. The Jews then brought all of their karbanos in the temple, and from that point forward, there was a permanent banning of bamos ad olam, forever, ad infinitum, because the kedusha of the temple is extant even after its destruction. So Tanu Rabbanan, ki lo vasem ad ata el hamenucha ve'el hanachala, menucha zu Shilo, nachala zu Yerushalayim. So once again, we quote this brisa that tells us from the pasuk in Parshas Re'eh that today you have not yet come to the menucha and nachala, referring to Shiloh and Yerushalayim respectively, and that's why you're allowed to offer karbanos on bamos. Now, va'omer haisali nachlasi ka'aryeh biyar. Now, how do you know that Yerushalayim is called the nachala? Meaning, where do you see that the word nachala is indicative of Yerushalayim? As the pasuk in Yirmiyah says, that in describing the destruction of Jerusalem, it says that Jerusalem to me is my inheritance, and it is like a lion in the forest who basically is ferocious and doesn't want to be bothered by me anymore. In other words, I can't go to it anymore. And va'omer ha'ayet savua nachalasi li ha'ayet saviv aleha. And the very next pasuk in Yirmiyah also describes Jerusalem as the abandoned city, sort of like the vultures hovering over it because it's been laid to waste. But there too, the pasuk calls Yerushalayim nachalasi, my inheritance, says Hashem. So from these psukim in Yirmiyah, you see that the word nachala is a reference to Jerusalem. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon Omer, menucha zu Yerushalayim nachala zu Shilo. So Rabbi Shimon reverses it, and he says, I see the words menucha and nachala, but I reverse it. I hold that menucha refers to Jerusalem, and nachala refers to Shiloh. Va'omer, and how can I prove that to you, that the word menucha is a reference to Jerusalem? Because it says, Zos menuchasi ad adei ad po eshev ki ivisiha. The pasuk in Tehillim says this, referring to Jerusalem, is my menucha, and I will dwell here forever. Va'omer ki bachar Hashem b'tzion yivala moshav lo. And another pasuk in Tehillim says that Zion, a synonym for Jerusalem, is the place where God dwells. So you see that God is calling that place, Zion, or Jerusalem, his place of menucha. So the Gemara now says, let's analyze this. Bishlam laman da'ar menucha zu Shilo hainu dichsev el menucha v'la nachala. El laman da'ar menucha zu Yerushalayim nachala zu Shilo el hanachala ve'el menucha mi bo'ile. So the Gemara says, Yehuda, the first shita, makes very good sense. First it says menucha, referring to Shiloh, and then it says nachala, referring to Yerushalayim. But if you learn like Reb Shimon, it's out of order. Yes. Why say Jerusalem first and then Shiloh second? Historically, that's out of order. So the Gemara says, Hachi kamer lo mi baya menucha de lo matisu, elafilu lenachala nami lo matisu. What Hashem is saying is like this: not only have you not come to Jerusalem, the final resting spot, but you haven't even come to Shiloh, which is the temporary resting spot. Meaning, that's why you're allowed to offer karbanos on bamos. In other words, but it's not a chronological sequence, but it's saying, not only have you not come to the final destination, you even haven't come to the temporary destination, which is in Shiloh. Now, that's how he would read it.
Or achron chavlik, so Yerushalayim, even leave for last anyways. Forget chronology.
No, we're saying just the opposite. We're saying menucha is Yerushalayim, nachla is Shiloh. So we're saying...
switch it also?
No, that's what we're saying. According to this opinion, Yerushalayim comes first, not achron chavlik. Okay, next. Tana devei Rabbi Yishmael. Now we have a third opinion, that zu v'zu Shiloh, that both menucha and nachala refer to one place, refer to Shiloh. And Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Omer, zu v'zu Yerushalayim. And Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai says, no, both of them, both menucha and nachala, refer to one place, Jerusalem. So we have four opinions what menucha and nachala mean. Either it means Shiloh and Jerusalem, or Jerusalem and Shiloh, or both refer to Shiloh, or both refer to Yerushalayim. So Bishlam laman domer menucha zu Shiloh, nachala zu Yerushalayim inami ibcha, hainu dichsev el hamenucha ve'el hanachala. El laman domer zu v'zu Shiloh, zu v'zu Yerushalayim, menucha nachala mi bo'ilei. The Gemara says, if you're telling me these, according to these last two opinions, that either both words mean Shiloh or both words mean Yerushalayim, Why do you say menucha and nachala? If it's the same place, just say menucha nachala. Maybe it's got a place that's got two names, but don't say this and that. So the Gemara says kasha. It's a good point. We don't have an answer. Bishlam laman da'amar zu v'zu shilo menucha denachu mikibush nachala depolgu, period. I could understand if you say that both words refer to Shiloh. So we've explained how, we have to explain how both the words menucha and nachala are a reference to Shiloh. That's not difficult to do, because when is Shiloh erected? After 7 years of kibush, after 7 years of conquest, and after 7 years of division. So menucha is a reference to respite after war, and nachala is a reference to ascertaining and identifying who gets what. So that's when Shiloh steps in. So that makes that fits in menucha nachala to Shiloh, because hasam nachalos tichsiv vayechalek lahem Yoshua vayipol lahem gorel b'Shiloh al pi Hashem. And in reference to Shiloh, it even talks about how Shiloh was the place where they finally made all of the lots based on, divine, the Urim V'Tumim, the prophecy. And that's how they were able to divide up the land in Shiloh. So, Ela laman da'amar zu v'zu Yerushalayim, bishlam anachala nachala solamim, ela menucha, my menucha. But if you're going to tell me that both words, menucha and nachala, refer to Jerusalem, I could certainly understand how nachala means it's God's final place of inheritance for his dwelling. But how does Jerusalem, how does Yerushalayim refer to menucha? In what sense is Yerushalayim a place of menucha? So the Gemara answers, menuchas aron. D'chsiv vayihi kenoach ha'aron. It is a place of menucha because it's the place of the final resting spot of the aron. And that's why it's considered to be a place of resting, coming to rest. And because the pasuk says that when the aron came to rest.
Where was the aron during Nov?
It was in Kiryat Ye'arim. It was in a village called Kiryat Ye'arim. That's what the Gemara had, with the last Amar had just
said.
Okay, right. Bishlam laman da'amar zu v'zu Yerushalayim aval Shiloh ha'v'shar yabamos. Now, if you learn that both menucha and nachala refer to Yerushalayim, what does that imply? The Torah is saying that you're allowed to do whatever you want sacrificially because you haven't yet come to Jerusalem. So what does that mean? It means that even during the time of Mishkan Shiloh, you can do whatever you want. So bamos are permitted during Mishkan Shiloh, clearly not like our Mishnah. But there is such a valid opinion, okay? And the Gemara says, that is acceptable because Hainu Dichsiv Vayikach Manoach Es Gedi Ha'izim Ve'es HaMincha Vayala Ladoshem. At least we can make sense of a pasuk in Sefer Shoftim talking about Manoach, who was Shimshon's father, and it says that he created a private altar and he lived during the time of Mishkan Shiloh. So at least according to this opinion, it makes sense, the justification for him to build a private altar, even though there was a Mishkan in Shiloh. But if you're going to tell me, like our Mishnah, that bamos were prohibited during Mishkan Shiloh, then what right did Manoach have to build a private altar? So the Gemara answers, Hara Sha'ahaisa. It was based upon a one-time special dispensation that he was given to Manoach, perhaps by the angel that appeared to him and his wife, telling him that it's okay for you to build a private altar in this one instance. Now, Tana devei Rabbi Yishmael ke Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, da'amar zu v'zu Yerushalayim v'simaneich mashi gavra legavre. And then the postscript of this whole discussion is that even though originally Tana devei Rabbi Yishmael, the rabbis of the Beis Medrash of Rabbi Yishmael, disagreed with Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, because Tana devei Rabbi Yishmael held that both words refer to Shiloh, and Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai said both words refer to Yerushalayim. Eventually, the Beis Medrash of Rabbi Yishmael came around to the Shita of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, and they finally relented that both words refer to Yerushalayim like Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. And the way to remember that is that the one man was able to persuade the group of men. The one man, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, was able to persuade and draw in the group of people in the Beis Medrash of Rabbi Yishmael. Let's go weiter. Kol hakodshim v'chulei. The Mishnah had then said that if a person has an animal that was designated as a carbon, bish'as heter habamos. Let's say it's I'm living in the times of Nov and Givon, and I'm allowed to offer an animal on a private altar. But then all of a sudden, dum da da da, there's a trumpet, and everyone hears that the Beis HaMikdash has been built. So now I'm obligated to take this animal and bring it to Yerushalayim as a korban. So what's the halacha? So the Mishnah had said that in that situation, if I were to go ahead and do the sacrificial order outside of the temple, I would not get kares. I only get kares in a situation where the animal is pre-designated at a time of Isser Habamos, and it is offered at a time of Isser Habamos. But if I pre-designate it at a time of Heter Habamos, and then I offer it at a time of Isser Habamos, I am in violation of the Torah, but I don't get kares for that. Martin?
I just want to ask, is it the building the Beis HaMikdash, or is it with the location of everything in Yerushalayim under David?
No, it's clearly the construction,
the
because the period, like the Gemara went through went through the timing. It was in the 4th year of Shlomo's reign that the 57 years were over.
I forgot.
Okay, so the Gemara now says, Amar Rav Kahana lo shanu elo b'shchita aval b'ha'ala kares nami michayev. My taima do Amar Kra va'alehem tomar ala smuchin toimar. So Rav Kahana has a dramatic sort of qualification to this halacha. He says that the only time that you're going to be patur from kares in that case that we just described is only if you shecht the animal outside the temple. But if you actually put the animal on an altar outside the temple, you will also get kares even though it had been designated at a time of heter habamos. Now, on what basis does Rav Kahana say that? It's based on the way he looks at the psukim. Because there's a sequence of 3 psukim in the Torah, and the way that the third pasuk talks about shchutei chutz, for which you get kares. That if you offer an animal outside the temple, you're going to get kares. But the 2 psukim that come before it, pasuk number 1, is referring to the case of where you had designated the animal at a time of heter habamos, and you offer it at a time of isser habamos. The next pasuk says, Va'alehem tomar, and that pasuk says, V'lo yizbechu odes zivchehem lasirim. They shall not slaughter their animals to the demons outside the temple, so to speak. And the next pasuk says, Va'alehem tomar, to the kohanim you should say, right, if anyone shall offer his korban outside the temple, and then the third pasuk says, he shall get kares. Now, the first pasuk is referring to only slaughtering, and it's saying then, Va'alehem tomar. Now, about that first pasuk where we talked about where it's you designated it at a time of heter habamos and you slaughtered it at a time of isser habamos, then va'alehem tomar. So even though va'alehem tomar means say to the kohanim, you could read it as changing the aleph into an ayin and reading it as follows: va'alehem tomar. About the previous pasuk, you shall say that the prohibition that is only a mitzvah lo saseh only applies to shchita, but if you actually put it on a mizbeach, then you shall get kares. Okay, that's the way Rav Kahana looks at that sequence of psukim. So maskif la Rabba, miksiv va'alehem tomar alehem ksiv. So first of all, what right do you have to switch an ayin for an aleph? It doesn't say va'alehem, referring to the previous pasuk. It says va'alehem, referring to speak to the kohanim, to them. Va'otanya. Furthermore, I'm going to challenge you from the following brisa, which clearly demonstrates not like you said, Rav Kahana. And what does the brisa say? Arba klolos haya Reb Shimon Omer b'kadshim. That Reb Shimon made 4 sort of rules having to do with a situation like this, where your designation is at one time period, and your actually bringing of the korban is at a different time period, and we'll see the different permutations. Hekdishan b'shas iser habamos v'shachat v'hela b'shas iser habamos b'chutz harehin ba'aseh v'lo saseh v'yesh b'hem kares. That if I designate the animal when bamos are aser, and I offer the animal at a time when bamos are aser, I violate a mitzvahs aseh, a mitzvahs lo saseh, and I get kares. Hekdishan b'shas heter habamos v'shachat v'hela b'shas iser habamos harehin ba'aseh v'lo saseh v'ein b'hem kares. And this is the crucial case. This is case number 2 that we're dealing with. If I designated it when bamos are permitted, and I slaughter it, or I offer it on an altar outside the temple when bamos are prohibited, I violate a mitzvahs aseh, I violate a mitzvahs lo aseh, but I do not get kares. quite clear that you're mistaken, Rav Kahana. Either slaughtering or offering on an altar outside will not get you kares in that case. And then the last two cases are hiktishin b'shas iser habamos v'shachat v'hela b'chutz b'shas heter habamos harehein ba'aseh ve'ein bahem below saseh. So if the opposite case, let's say I designate the animal at a time of iser habamos, let's say during Mishkan Shiloh, and then Shiloh is destroyed, and now it's a time of heter habamos, and I offer it outside. So there, I am in violation of a mitzvah's aseh, but there's no mitzvah's lo aseh. In other words, what the Bryce is essentially suggesting is that animal has to sort of go in limbo, because now that since you designated it at a time when bamos were usher, and now there's no longer any other option, I guess that animal would have to graze until it develops a mum. But if I were to offer that animal on a private bama, then I would be in violation only of a mitzvah saseh. Now, hikdishin b'shas heter habamos v'shachat vela b'shas heter habamos pater miklum. And the final case, which is fairly obvious, is that if I designate the animal when bamos are permitted, and I slaughter it or offer it at a time when bamos are permitted, then obviously I'm not in violation of anything. That's the end of the brisa. But based on case number 2, tiyufta de Rav Kahana, tiyufta. There's clearly a refutation of Rav Kahana, and therefore, in conclusion, the Gemara is basically saying that there will be no kares in the case where you designated it at the time of heter habamos and you do the avoda in the time of iser habamos. There will be no kares regardless of whether you shecht it or whether you place it on a mizbeach. Next, ve'elu kadshim v'chulei. The last thing that the Mishnah had told us is that there is a fundamental difference in protocol in certain types of avoda between a private bama and a public mizbeach, which would be either the bama gedola or the mizbeach that's in the temple. As far as function, as far as protocols, right? When you're offering a korban on a bama ketana, the rules are much more relaxed. So the first thing that we saw was smicha, that you don't press down on the animal when you offer it on a private bama. Dichsiv lifnei Hashem, because it only says that you do smicha when you're in front of God. In other words, when God is present on either a public bama or in the temple. V'samach, lifnei Hashem v'samach, period. Now, shchitas tzafon, dichsiv tzafonu lifnei Hashem. Also, the protocol that when you offer kadshei kadshim, you have to slaughter the animal on the north flank of the altar, that only applies to a public bama, not to a private bama, because again, it says you do this only when you're in front of God. Matano saviv dichsiv ezarak al mizbeach saviv, and also throwing blood on all sides of the altar for certain karbanos only applies to a public bama, not to a private bama, because there too the Torah talks about throwing the blood on the mizbeach, again in front of Hashem, in front of the Ol Moed. Tenufa dichsiv einifa koin lifnei Hashem. Waving the animal also is only done on a bama gedola, not on a bama ketana, on a private bama, because it says once again you only wave in front of God. Hagasha dichsiv higisha al mizbech, bringing a receptacle of blood and touching it to the side of the mizbech, which is called hagasha, also is only done on a large mizbeach, a public mizbeach, because it says once again lifnei Hashem. Rabbi Yehuda Omer ein mincha bebama. Rabbi Yehuda also interjected into our Mishnah that there was never a mincha brought during the times of bamos. That was only brought in the times when we had either a Mishkan or a Beis HaMikdash. Amar of Sheshis, L'divrei ha'omer yesh mincha bebama, yesh ofos bebama. L'divrei ha'omer ein mincha bebama, ein ofos bebama. Zvachim v'lo menachos, zvachim v'lo ofos. Now, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the note is made by Rav Sheshis that not only does Rabbi Yehuda hold that there were no menachos on the bamos, but there were also no birds on the bamos. But if you hold that there were menachos, there were birds as well. And the reason is because the Torah uses the word zevachim, or zevicha, in the context of bamos. Zevicha refers to animal slaughter and animal slaughter only. So if you understand that word is excluding menachos, it also is excluding bird sacrifice, because a bird is not nizbach, it is nimlak. It is right. Its severing is done in a different process other than zevicha. Now, the kohen dichsiv is zaraka kohen on a bamas yachid, on a private bama, you don't need a kohen. We said in the Mishnah, even an eved, even a servant is allowed to do the avoda, because it says v'zaraka kohen lifnei Hashem, as it says that the kohen shall throw the blood Pesach Ol Moed, right in front of the Ol Moed, which has to be a public altar. Bigdei sharis l'sharis bakodesh. Also, there's no requirement for special vestments on a private bama, because the Torah says to serve in the holiness is when you need the clothes, and this is not the holiness. Uchlei sharis asher yisharasu bam bakodesh. And also, you don't need to have klei sharis, you don't need to have ministering vessels on a private bama, because the Torah there says that only when you're in the holiness do you need to have these special ministering vessels. And finally, reach nichoach, not finally, reach nichoach tichsiv l'reach nichoach l'Hashem. You need to create a savory fragrance, a strong odor of roasting fresh meat, only on a public altar, right? Because there too, the Torah says it'll be a reach nichoach in front of God. But if you're on a private bama, you're not in front of God, you have a right to roast the limbs of the animal off the altar, and then place roasted limbs on the altar, so that will no longer emit that very strong odor of roasting meat. That's okay on a private bama. Now, mechitza b'damim dichsiv. Also, another thing the Mishnah had said is that on a public altar, like in the temple, there is what we call the chut hasikra, the dividing line, for some blood that has to be sprinkled above and some blood that has to be sprinkled below. The chatas blood is sprinkled in one place, the ola blood is sprinkled in another place, right? So that only applies in a public altar. But on a private altar, you don't have that dividing line. As it says that dividing line in the construction of the Mishkan shall be up to the halfway point on the Mizbeach. And there too, the Pasuk says it's the Mizbeach that's in front of Hashem. Now, Richotz Yadayim, there's no requirement for the person doing the avoda to wash his hands in the case of a Bamas Yachid. Only when they come to the altar, the public altar, do they have to wash their hands. So these are all distinctions. Now we get to now a statement of Rami Bar Chama, which is a different subject, and therefore I would like to suggest that we save that until tomorrow's daf, because it's a short daf tomorrow, and you'll be able to finish Seder's, Maseches Zevachim tomorrow. On Sunday, Mirz Hashem, we'll start Maseches Menachos. Just please note that because it's Rosh Chodesh, the first daf will still be at 7:15, but the second daf will be much later, probably either 9 or 9:15 in all likelihood. Okay? Have a wonderful day.